Alright, so I want to talk through stuff about yesterday. So in general, we stratify, we first put it into groups. And then once we have those groups, we do what?
Select color.
Put it right there. And then with cluster, we put it into groups, and then we do what?
Select them.
So that's just our very, very general difference between the two of them. Making sure that I explained this well enough, we're basically saying that we've got some population that looks somewhat like this, where there are a variety of things in that population. Well, there are red, there are yellow, there are blue. They all have differing opinions on whatever we're asking about. So in order, when I get a sample, I want my sample to represent my population, which means theoretically I would want some of each of those different colors in my sample. So in stratified, I purposely section these yellow together, section all the blue together, section all the red together, even if they're not the exact same amount in each one. And then I sample randomly from within each of those samples to make sure that red, yellow, and blue get included. So like I'm making sure that my sample ends up being partially from each. Whereas clusters, the way I group it might be something like this. To where within the groups, at least to some extent, I'm getting a decent variety of the different colors, so that when I select a group or more groups, theoretically I'm still getting red, yellow, and blue dots in my sample. Does that make sense as far as like what's going on behind the scenes? Okay, so in our example from yesterday, when we were dealing with the question about mask mandates, you had to decide when you group whether it was supposed to do with mask mandate or not. So when I did stratified and I put them into groups, did I want those groups to have anything to do with possibly how they would answer about mask mandates? Yes. So of my options, age was one, gender, sodium level, IQ, am I missing one? Marital status. Would age possibly have a difference in differing opinions? Yes. Would
All right, Patriots, I have your second block, class challenges. We have Miss Hyder versus Miss Faust, Mr. Keller versus T. Sullivan, and then Miss Nessberg versus Mr. Bell. Thank you so much. Go Patriots.
Alright, so would gender possibly have a difference in mask mandate? That's one that I would probably have different people argue different sides. Would sodium level? Probably not, unless you wanted to get into it of like maybe it's a health issue and then health issue was being mask mandate, then you can get into that. Marital status? Probably not. So here you want to pick groups that do have something to do with with the topic. Whereas when I split with cluster, do I want to split them into groups that have something to do with the topic? No, I want to get it to where when I split them in groups, I'm getting a variety of opinions within each group. So what are examples that would have been good for our homework yesterday that would have been good to cluster by? ID number, what else? You probably could have said marital status. You probably could have said sodium level. I wouldn't have said age. So between and within, here are the groups similar between or similar within? So here they're similar within because within each group they're similar. Whereas with cluster, they are similar between. So these are similar within, and I do that on purpose. Why? What's the point of me putting ones that are similar between or within? What was the point of this whole slide?
So each group's included.
To make sure each group was included. Make sure the different, whatever they are represented. Here, they are similar between, like this. And why do I do that?
So each group roughly represents the population.
So each group roughly represents the population. So when I take that group, I already have a good representation of somewhat of the whole. Questions? What are our three different? Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out like the difference between doing that and then like cluster and just randomly taking from like the population.
Because there I put like this one would be putting you like grouping you by your second period class and taking entire second period classes would be cluster. Splitting you by grade level and taking some from each grade level would be stratified. Random would just be me pulling out ID numbers. So it wouldn't have any like I might end up getting with all freshmen or something like that. So bias stuff. What are my types of bias for sampling error? Convenient, voluntary response. Don't just say voluntary response or undercoverage.
Can you explain the convenience one?
Convenience is exactly what it sounds like. You do something out of convenience, but out of convenience, the people around you are probably similar, or the people in that group are similar. I usually think that's probably the less specific one out of the rest of them. Usually there's a better answer than that, but not always. Undercoverage. What does it mean to be undercoverage? It's not that I didn't take a big enough sample, it's that,
Some people can't participate.
say it again?
Some people can't participate.
Some people never got a chance to be in part of that sample. Like that's that phone coverage. If you weren't in my coverage area, you would have never had a chance to experience what my phone coverage is like. So if I do a phone survey, people without a phone would never have a chance to be in my survey. That's undercoverage. And then the third one, voluntary response. Voluntary response is the one that gets mixed up the most. What is voluntary response?
So people are choosing to take part in this data.
People are choosing to take part in the survey, which the theoretical way I remember the difference between this one and one from the other one is no one knew that I came across this survey or saw this survey or could have taken the survey to write my name down. So if I call your phone, I could write your number down. If you're walking by and I ask you a question, theoretically I could be writing your name down, that I tried to contact you. But if I put something out there online, I don't know that you saw it and didn't. You would have to choose to click on it to participate. And where people get that confused is you would have had to choose to answer me when I walked up to you, but I had already walked up physically to you and chose you, so that is not voluntary response. You see the difference between the two. So voluntary response is not I choose to respond, it's I choose to participate.
Hey Patriots, we are sold out of buyout tickets. If you got one, see you there. Thanks so much. Good pass.
And then, so non-sampling, so the one that gets confused with, so if I walk up to you and you just ignore me and walk away, what is that called? Non-response, so that is a non-sampling error. What are my other two non-sampling errors? Wording bias, which is exactly what it sounds like, and response bias. And what is response bias in general? Lying is usually for a reason, like something, well, to be honest, if I ask you questions about how things went, something with my class, you're more likely to answer a certain way if you're responding directly to me. So you're not just lying to maliciously lie necessarily, but there's a reason behind why you are choosing to lie. What's the difference between observational study and experiment?
Experiment imposes.
Experiment, you impose a treatment, and only with experiment, what? You show causation. So I can't say anything with cause and effect unless it was experiment. I feel like I'm missing one thing. Is there anything I have to think of that's going to be on the quiz that I haven't mentioned yet? Oh, the sampling types. I don't know, I've talked about those. Systematic, they're in order. You pick every whatever person. What is a simple random sample?
Simple brain.
Random.
Everyone has them before I use them.
And a simple random sample means that every group of that size has equal chance of being selected. So you and the 4 people inside of you have just as any chance as you and any other 4 people that there possibly could be in that group. So is a cluster a simple random sample? No, because you can only be chosen with people in your group. Is a stratified a simple random sample? No, because there's no possible way that just your entire group could get selected. Go ahead and put everything up except something right with.